Hello and welcome to episode 87 of the Artist Empowerment Radio Podcast. This is Bob Baker. So I'm just curious, did you happen to catch the last episode, number 86, when I interviewed Shannon Curtis on how she grossed $25,000 in 2 months doing house concerts? It was a great interview. In fact, it was just part one of a two-part interview series, and this episode, 87, features part two of that amazing interview. In the first one, Shannon kind of laid out how she discovered house concerts and how she made it profitable and set up a whole tour. Pretty much changed her whole business model to be centered around live performance in people's homes. And so on this one, she dives deeper into the process and talks about how she structures her sets when she does the house concerts. Also, some amazing kind of insider tips that I had never really considered on how to ask for the donations, because she doesn't have a required amount of money that people pay or that the hosts have to come up with, but there's a particular way that she does it where she makes them very profitable. So she talks about that, some merch selling tips. Also, at the end, I asked her about a book that she wrote where she chronicled this whole process. Also, Shannon was nice enough to give me a discount code to give to my listeners exclusively to get a 20% discount on the paperback version of the book when it's purchased from her website. So if you go to shannoncurtis.com, and I do have the links to that page and her site in the show notes at thebuzzfactor.com, but go to her website, order the paperback version, and if you enter BuzzFactor20, you'll save 20% off of the paperback version. That's BuzzFactor20, all one word, BuzzFactor, the number 2 and the number 0, all one word. Got it? Okay. So again, if you missed part 1 of my interview, go back through the archives and listen to episode 86 first, and then come back to 87 here and listen to part 2 of my interview with Shannon. I know you're going to love it. Before I get to it, I just want to ask you, do you have a copy of my Music Marketing Secrets Report? Or how about my other free offering, which is called How to Recession-Proof Your Music Career? There's another mini report called 4 Ways to Attract More Music Fans Faster. If you don't have these, it's really easy to get. It's completely free. Just go to thebuzzfactor.com, and just about on every page in the right-hand column, you'll see a little image of the cover of Music Marketing Secrets. Just click on it, enter your name and your email, and I will send you immediate access to those reports. And on top of that, I'll give you a free subscription to my long-running Buzz Factor email newsletter with even more tips and tools on how to attract fans and make more money with your music and spread this great gift that you have with others in the world. So go ahead, do that now while you're thinking about it, thebuzzfactor.com. And now here's part 2 of my interview with Shannon Curtis. Do you typically just do a 1-hour set at a house concert?
I do. And I think that is one of the things that's different than the traditional house concert, niche that we were talking about earlier. I think that a lot of those places will actually do like 245s or something like that. But I do an hour-long set. I work really hard to create sort of an arc in my set, that it's an experience from beginning to end. It's not like I'm fiddling around and, just picking songs out of the air to play. I craft a set so that I'm bringing an experience for that hour. And I think in my experience, that's just enough time to give people a really meaningful experience without testing the limits of their attention spans.
So Shannon, you have really, you're an extremely smart artist, smart cookie, and you've really thought this stuff through, not only about the nuances of the performance, but you mentioned, metrics and all this stuff. So I don't know what was your degree in, or that you mentioned earlier?
I studied biology.
Biology. Well, whatever it was, I don't know. And I've often said that some of the most successful creative people have a good balance between right and left, thinking.
Right.
And so you've got obviously the creative stuff. I mean, I was on your website and heard your some of your songs. You got a beautiful voice and great. It sounds great. So you got the artistic thing going on, but you also have that kind of a business mind or an analytical side of you. That's how can we make this better? What can we tweak? And is that fair to say about you?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't actually say that second part, the business part, comes naturally to me. That's something that has developed out of necessity and over time.
Okay.
Um,
But you've embraced it in a way. A lot of musicians will just curse that and go, I don't want to mess with that stuff. I just want to be an artist. But you've said, well, I kind of need this, so let's get on friendly terms with it, right?
Right. Well, exactly. But I have to say that since sort of stumbling into this house concert model that we use, honestly, it's been so much fun to see how successful it is. That's actually been the hook to get me to think more creatively about the business side of things. And so I think that because it's been so fun to watch it grow and build over the last couple of years, it's gotten me more excited about getting serious about the business part of things than I ever was before.
Cool.
Because I started to see the creative possibilities with it. It wasn't just business for business sake.
Exactly.
It's bringing a creative spirit, I guess, to the business side of things.
Sure. Well, if focusing on those metrics, yeah, and I totally agree that marketing and the business aspects do not have to be drudgery and all that. That you can have fun with them and be creative, especially with the marketing and the promotion stuff. But if you stay focused on the reason you're doing it, which is just to connect with more fans, to to be more prosperous artists, which is nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Then it's all good. So we were just discussing like some of the elements of a successful house concert, that a lot of these people are doing this for the first time. So I assume that somewhere on either on your website, you either have a page or maybe you have some kind of informational thing that you send to new hosts with an outline of some of those things that I'm sure that you've developed. Is that true? And how important is that?
Very, very important. In fact, we revamp it sort of every year when we prepare for the house concert tour. So I made a whole new 2014 summer house concert tour host guide for this year. And it's like, 7 pages PDF. There's pretty pictures and sort of the description of here's how we do it. But just gives people a primer, so to speak, about like how to be a house concert host. And I send that out to all of our prospective hosts. And it's a lot of the same stuff that I talk about in the book, just kind of reworded to speak to a host rather than someone who's trying to do this on their own.
Right. And you mentioned donation based, and I'm just curious, like, do you have a recommended amount per person that you ask the host to collect from each person? And then also, is there some like minimal guarantee that you go, this shouldn't cost you anything if you collect this money, but I need at least this much to do it? Or do you not have that? I'm curious about that aspect of it too.
Yeah, you know what? We have not done the minimum thing, and we have not done the suggested donation thing either. And that's not to say that those aren't perfectly good ways to go if an artist is more comfortable with that. But in my experience, let's go back to that very first house concert we did in San Diego, the one where my fan was like, "Hey, come play in San Diego, my living room, we'll collect donations." That night, there was not a suggested donation. It was just a vase that she put on a table at the end of the show saying, "This was awesome. Let's support Shannon,"
almost like a tip jar then.
Well,
basically.
Yes. Well, we're going to talk about that word tip jar in a minute, Bob. That's a bad word.
Bad word. Okay. Well, cool.
But she put out this vase, and at the end of the night, we were fishing out the money that was in there, and one individual had dropped $100 bill in there.
Nice.
Right. If she had said, this is a $20 suggested donation or a $10 suggested donation, I don't know that person would have done that. Maybe they would have, but they might not have. On the flip side of that, what if she had a friend who was hard on her luck that night and might not have come because this $20 suggested donation was more than she could deal with at this time in her life? Well, you know what? I still want that person to come. I don't want them to be turned away because they feel like that there's a barrier to entry, because the bottom line is that you want to connect with people. You want to connect people with your music. And even if they can't donate very much the first time they see you, maybe they'll go home with a $5 EP and they'll sign your mailing list, and maybe they'll become a huge supporter over the course of the years of your career. It's still worth it to get them in the door. So there's two sides of that suggested donation thing that I feel like you want people to come if they can't afford the suggested donation, and you want people who are doing well and want to appreciate their support generously to have no upward limit on that either. And in some ways, it kind of feels a bit like a trust fall, those junior high exercises that we did for, like icebreakers and like you fall backwards and you get caught by your classmates. It's kind of like we do a trust fall every night. But what that does, it does a number of things. As a performer, it makes it so that you know you're going to be paid for how well you do. So you got to bring your A game, and there's it confers this really like this sense of responsibility to like really entertain these people and make that connection, make it happen. And we found in our experience that very few times have we hit the floor in the trust fall experiment.
Yeah, when they dropped you, yeah.
Yeah.
Like stage diving or something. With nobody.
I've gotten bruised tailbone only a couple of times, but honestly, we've done, I've done 150 plus of these house concerts over the last few years, and the vast majority, 99% of the time, we are caught and lifted up and supported generously.
I'm sure in your book you go into some details about the how do you ask for the donations, and then merch sales. If you have like one or two nuggets, I think you said you were going to come back to the tip jar. Why it's a dirty word? So if you want to cover that, and any other little advice in this whole how you monetize when you're giving your A game performance would be helpful. And so
I think on donations, one of the things that we've learned that works really well is to do those donations. Your host is going to be the person that asks for the donation because they've invited their friends. It's their house. That makes sense, right? And the things that works really well for us is to have the host to get up in front of the crowd as soon as I've played the last note of my set. So you're not asking for the donations as people are walking in the door because they haven't even heard you at that point. Why would that be the time to do it? What you want is to make a direct connection between, here's this great performance that you just experienced. What is this worth to you, and how do you want to support this? This is the connection you want to make. So we walk through this with the host ahead of time and say, okay, here's how it's going to go down. You take this vase up with you at the end of the show and express your enjoyment of the event and encourage people to give generously. And we specifically ask them to not use words like tip jar, because a tip jar, that makes you think of crumpled up $1 bills.
In a smoky bar or something. Yeah.
We want 20s, So specifically we ask them to use the word donations, and we actually ask them specifically not to use words like gas money or tip jar or things like that, because those things don't confer the sort of like, I guess, the gravity of the situation. We're giving donations for a concert that we just heard. It's not gas money for the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that plays into the starving artist. We're just, we're doing her a favor just to giving her a place to play. Right.
So the language really does communicate a lot. So yes, these are things that we actually go over with each of our hosts every night before showtime. Here's how, we want the post-show donation speech to go. Here's some tips for you. And generally speaking, the hosts are super excited to get that direction, because most of them will be like, people aren't necessarily great at talking in front of groups of people. And so whatever help that they can get, they usually welcome it.
Awesome. And so you found that coaching them and just having that your only way of gathering the donations, it adds up. It
does. Cool. It does. And every once in a while you'll have a host who's like a natural fundraiser and will get up there and is like big supporter of grassroots DIY art, and they'll make this really moving speech, and I'm like, oh, if I could just videotape that and give that to all of our hosts, But it's motivating, and people do participate. It's really quite a thing to see.
So donations are like one of the revenue streams from house concerts, and then merch sales. So you have CDs and T-shirts, and I think you mentioned something else that you have for sale that you sell at these things, and that's an additional.
Sorry, that was my calendar reminder. I'm so sorry about that.
That's all right. You sound like a frog, maybe, in the background.
My apologies.
You're all good.
Merch at last summer on our 2013 house concert tour, merch sales totaled 45% of our income. So having a good merch strategy is super important to actually making this thing work. And so we bring along CDs. I put out a new album last year called CinemaScope, and I have a new album coming out this year called Metaforma. So something new, because we go back to the same, some of the same houses year after year. It's really important to continue to produce new material, new stuff for them to buy. I also do T-shirts, and I learned how to silk screen, so that I'd make all my own merch. I do T-shirts and tote bags. And, it's a bit of a like head banging against a wall to learn a few things about silk screening. But once you know, it's easy to do, and you can save a ton of money on your soft merch by making it yourself. Like our costs for t-shirts have gone way down, and I can sell them for $15, which is a really great price for a t-shirt. And my margins are still much greater than if I were sourcing them from a screen printer and selling them for 20.
So the time it takes you to make them is still justifies the lower cost of the profits.
It takes time. Honestly, like I can do a run. It takes, I don't know, a handful of days out of my schedule. It's really not that much time to do it.
It's fun to do. It's creative, right?
Yeah, I enjoy it, and I enjoy it. I mean, if you're not going to enjoy something like that, I wouldn't recommend doing it. But I happen to actually enjoy it too. Right. And there's something about like handmade merch from the artist. I think that people are like, oh my gosh, she made that herself. I'm going to go get myself that cute T-shirt.
Cool. That gives me an idea. Maybe at my improv shows, I could have handmade art from the improv teachers or something.
Tour with your art, absolutely.
And play a song, and I'll hit them from all angles. Incorporate all of your skills and talents. No, that's fantastic. Yeah, and I guess having that personal touch with the merch. Oh, and then you mentioned earlier just a few minutes ago about how since you are coming back to the same houses every year, you probably have to mix up your set too and have new stuff to sell them. But with a 1 hour set, I guess it's pretty easy. You probably have a pretty big repertoire. You could probably come back a week later and do a whole new 1 hour set. But I bet you there's some favorites. I'm sure the host will go, oh, you've got to do that song that you got to take the request too, I guess. Or are your shows more structured where you don't take requests in the middle?
My shows are pretty structured, so I don't do requests in the middle. If every once in a while there's a host who's like, oh my gosh, you have to play blah, blah, blah. And if it's not already in my set, sometimes I'll arrange to do like a special like encore at the end of the set or something just for them,
After they do their incredible pitch for donations.
That's right. Exactly.
And they do another one after the encore.
Yes.
But that's awesome. But you said you average around 500, you said, gross per...
We average, yeah. So, I mean, when I say average, there's the ends of that are, spread out. I think our highest night last year was like a $1,200 night. Nice. And then the lowest was somewhere around 300. So, the spread is wide, but overall the average was $500 a night.
That's really cool. So I know we talked before I started recording about this is you decided, I guess, to put, I imagine a lot of people were asking you questions about the house concerts thing, and did somebody recommend that you publish a book on it, or did you just come up with the idea, on your own? I need to put this in print or whatever.
Well, there were two things that happened. One thing was last fall at the end of our summer house concert tour, we did a house concert in our own front yard here in Southern California. And we had invited, everyone we know in the area to come. And this one friend of mine who's she's an entertainment lawyer and also a musician herself. I had invited her to come, and she emailed and she's like, I'm so sorry I can't come. Ironically, I'm speaking at a music conference about house concerts. Do you have any pearls of wisdom to share? And I was like, oh, I know she's done a handful of house concerts, but I've done like 150. Why am I not speaking on this topic? I do have pearls of wisdom to share. So that was the first thing that planted the seed in me that maybe I should write down these ideas, so that I could actually give them to people. And I had lots of people asking me over the course of the couple of years too, how do you do this? But then actually my husband's manager was the one who suggested, why don't you put it in a book, and we'll use that as sort of like the focal point of being able to get the message out to other artists. And
that's awesome.
That's how the book was born. Yeah.
And you self-published that, which I totally applaud you for, because I'm a big DIY, self-publishing dude myself. And it was it first like a Kindle ebook, and now it's also available in print. Did I see?
That's right. Yeah, it was first conceived as an ebook, and that was all we were going to do. And then I was surprised by the number of people who requested hard copies. So we did the on-demand, create space through Kindle, Amazon, which is great. I mean, it was really relatively easy to do. And so, yes, it's now available in paperback as well.
Cool. For all you aspiring authors out there, createspace.com is a subsidiary of Amazon, and it's the number one place I recommend to get your print book. And did you go directly to Amazon to upload like your ebook there, or did you go through it as opposed to? And is Amazon the only place where it's available?
Nope, it's also on Barnes & Noble and also iTunes.
The iBooks store too.
Yeah.
Awesome. So and you sent me a review copy. Thank you very much. It's very well written, folks. I know a lot of times, sometimes self-published do-it-yourself books have a reputation of having typos and not being well, but this is really well done, Shannon.
Thank you.
I told you that before we started the recording, and it goes into a lot of detail. You break it down into all the different facets. Not only you go into more detail about what we talked about today, but there's stuff I'm sure we didn't even touch on about how to set these up and your experience with making them better. And so that's cool. So where would you like people to go to find out more about you or the book? Is it to your website, I take it?
Sure. Website's a good place to start. ShannonCurtis.net. Because .com was taken by an Australian author of romantic suspense novels. So
another author. Wow.
So ShannonCurtis.net is where you'll find me. And then there's all sorts of information on, there's a whole section on house concerts on my website where you can read sort of my history of house concerts and how we do them. There's a section about the book and links to where you can buy it. And then, of course, the music side of things, too, if you're curious what kind of music I make. And I have a new album coming out June 17th as well. So
that's fantastic. And I'll have all the links to these in the show notes at thebuzzfactor.com under the podcast tab. And then I don't know how many different ways there are to spell Shannon or Curtis, but we'll just spell it out here for those who are just listening in your earbuds. But SHANNON, correct? And it's CURTIS, and it's .net, not .com. So you'll get the romance author if you go to
That's right.
But we want the house concerts.
This is a really interesting cover for a house concert book.
Yeah, it's like Harlequin.
Yeah.
Like what's that? So what's the guy that did the margarine commercial that was on all those covers? Fabio, right? Yes. I can't believe it's not butter.
Totally.
I think that was the commercial he did. But the book is called No Booker, No Bouncer, No Bartender. But the real meat is in this, I guess, what the subtitle. Yeah, how I made $25,000 on a 2-month house concert, and how you can too. So, Shannon, thank you for joining me. Good luck with the book. How's the book been selling? Is it doing all right?
It's been doing great. It debuted at #1 in music business, which I was stoked about. Like we when we surpassed David Byrne's book, I was like, "You're kidding me."
And what I've learned, as you may know, like every hour, Amazon readjusts their rankings, and so whenever one of my books hits #1, I take a screenshot of it.
Oh yeah,
so you want to get it while it's in the #1.
I've got those too.
And now you're a #1 best-selling author.
I know, right?
In the music business category. But yeah, so it's so great to talk to you. You've got a wonderful spirit and a great way of communicating. I think you would have a bright future as a speaker as well if you ever chose to go down.
I've done a few of them, actually. Yeah, we're looking to do some more of that too. It's exciting.
Cool.
It's fun.
Multifaceted and educational and entertaining. So thanks a lot, Shannon, and I wish you well.
Bob.
And I'll hopefully meet you in person someday.
Look forward to it.
All right, so long for now.